This is a show that's based on a book that Dr. Eric Mannheimer wrote that's about different patients that he encountered at Bellevue when he was the medical director there, took over. And he really made a lot of changes for the better and kind of pushed back against the system and the institution of it and the bureaucracy of it all, and tried to get back to really helping people and getting people to talk to people, to look at problems in different ways, and to really ask the right questions and not just kind of churn patients out like a business, which was is a really interesting story. So that's what our show's about.
And when you first read the script, what really came out to you? What did you like about it?
What I really liked about David's script was the sort of freshness and the humor and the pace and the rhythm of it, and the character Max, you know, this guy who was just moving through this hospital in these different situations, some of them extraordinarily high stakes, and dealing with them sometimes with humor or with humility or sometimes losing control and just the sort of enormous amount of things that he had to deal with. But there's a kind of I don't know, there's this great rhythm to it, to this sort of organized chaos of it that I really liked. And I really like that it's an ensemble show with all these different personalities. And you know, I was just shooting a scene with Anupam yesterday, who plays Dr. Kapoor, and the way that he approaches a situation is totally different than the way Max does. And you know, Max comes in and really starts kind of rubbing everybody the wrong way, you know, and shaking things up and ruffling feathers, and it creates a really fun arc for these characters who are so different from him. Max is based on this real-life guy, Eric Mannheimer, who wrote this book, 12 Patients, Life and Death at Bellevue. And Eric is a really fascinating, inspiring, great guy who really cares and is not sort of interested in getting credit for the things he's doing. He's just interested in doing these things. And he's really, you know, kind of thinks outside the box and is less concerned with what people think and more concerned with making things better and finding actual progress and finding better solutions to things. And there is a real sense of exhaustion on this guy's first outing at this hospital because of the amount of things that are happening at any given moment. There, you know, Bellevue handles the UN and these diplomats and these children, prisoners from Rikers Island. You know, they have a psych ward. I mean, they have everything. It's one of the largest public hospitals in the country, or the largest. So yeah, it's it's very exhausting, and again, Max is always moving, and so I think it's especially exhausting for him. I know it's been exhausting for me playing the character because it's been a lot. But I, you know, as I'm discovering this character now and trying to find it, I feel the most like Max when he is, you know, on the move in search of a solution. I don't know, there's like a weaving that he does. I mean, we open on him running, and I think that says a lot about the character. I've learned that like any profession, like any job, like any workplace, there are good ones and there are bad ones. And there are people in healthcare who can kind of auto-diagnose and run you through the mill and say, oh, you've got A, B, you must have C, not going to think about it, next. And that can lead to a lot of problems, and it can encourage more care needed later and things like that. And then there are people who are really present, who are paying attention, who are listening, who are doing the job of caring for someone else's health. And those people are undoubtedly heroes. And it takes courage in any job to sort of try to push yourself and sort of, you know, be a cut above, or really do what it is you wanted to do when you dreamt of doing it when you were a kid, you know, that version of it. And so the ones who really are making a difference, and there's a number of them, are amazing. I mean, my whole family is in the medical profession. My folks are doctors. My sister's a nurse, and they, you know, they actually do it for real. And I have, you know, the most respect for them for that. Right. I mean, I had the same sort of thought when I heard of the show without reading it. It went, okay, it's a medical drama, and I probably know what that show is. And then I read it, and I said, you know what? There's a bit of humor here, and there's some interesting ideas about change and about pushing forward and breaking the mold and thinking again and becoming alive again, and really exciting kind of ideas that I could relate to. And then I met David Schulner, the writer, Peter Horton, the producer, and Kate Dennis, the director, and I thought these are three smart, thoughtful people who really seem to care about telling this story in a fresh way. And I thought that within sort of, you know, the medical drama, sort of a show that you're familiar with, a show that takes place primarily at a hospital, there was something new about it. And in a way, that's Max's and Eric's whole thing. The thing that's most exciting to me about the show is that this idea that, you know, we all become sort of complacent, and we all accept that things are what they are and they can't change. And I think right now in this country, in a number of areas, whether it be guns or healthcare or whatever, there are people who are reaching to make real change in the world. And the notion that we can is both idealistic and far-fetched and real and grounded, and to sort of believe that it's achievable again, to actually change things, is just such an exciting and emotional idea to connect to, that I connect to, that's really what I love about the show. I think NBC, you know, speaking for the 1 hour drama world, which is where I've, you know, been living for a little while, I think NBC really has a good handle on creating characters that you can relate to, creating human stories, and, you know, creating shows that whatever overarching ideology they're portraying, or whatever kind of world they're inhabiting, what you're really tuning into at the end of the day is human beings that you can relate to, who are having relationships with each other and facing the same things that we face in our own lives every day. That at the end of the day, that's what you're coming home to on the show, and I think that's what NBC does better than anybody.